Hello, I'm Renata Mienkowska-Norkiene and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. Poland is gripped by the debate on abortion. It's not the first time that it happens. It has been around for decades now. But at this stage, there are a couple of important things. Poland's current abortion law is fairly strict. Now, the current government wants to change that. However, it is finding it difficult to convince some of its own members and its own MPs to actually vote for changes that would essentially provide a more liberal legislative framework. In order to talk about the political implications of this debate and also what comes next, we're going to speak to our next guest today, Renata Mienkowska-Norkiene from the University of Warsaw, political scientist. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thank you for the invitation.
So let's begin with a brief glance at the Polish political scene, because it is not quite as simple as some would say. Look, you have a liberal government, so it is going to introduce liberal changes. The previous government was conservative, so it was going the other way. But it is a bit more complicated. So let's first introduce these nuances to our international viewers.
Okay, so let's begin with the fact that in my view as a political scientist, I see in Poland something like 95% of the representatives in political life of the society, which are conservative. And then there is something like about 5-ish, maybe up to 10% of the left. This is how it looks on the political scene. However, within the society, it's obviously very different, because within the society, we have probably a potential of 30–40% of the progressive, I would say, views. We don't know it like with a huge certainty, because there are obviously different opinion polls which check different aspects of progressiveness and liberal approach and so on and so forth. However, what we know for sure is that from the far right, Confederacja, so Confederation, then Law and Justice, Peace. Then we have the Polish Peasants' Party, PSL. Then we have the Third Way. Third Way, it's a Polish Peasants' Party plus Poland 2050. And then we have the Civic Coalition, and only then we approach to the left, where we have the left and Razem, so together, which basically means that if we take the conservative views within the political elite, we have something like 90-something% of the conservative let's say parties, because of course within each party we also have MPs which are more progressive, more liberal. Like we know that even in the Polish Peasants' Party, that is now, in my opinion, the crucial break in introducing those changes in the legal provisions regarding abortion, because as we know, the Polish Peasants' Party vote in its majority against liberalization of the now existing situation. And the Polish Peasants' Party is extremely conservative, of course, on the side of the governing parties. And it's also very close to the peasants, to, let's say, this rural part of Poland, where we have still quite a strong influence of the Catholic Church. So regarding this political landscape, what I may definitely say is that representatives of the society, meaning politicians, are far more conservative than their voters. And in the abortion rights, in the aspect of abortion, it's particularly visible. And here we have this problem of the Polish Peasants' Party being actually the one that prevents mainly, of course not only, but it mainly prevents from those changes, as knowing that it's necessary within the governing coalition. Polish Peasants' Party dictates its conditions, and unfortunately women have become a victim of it, because within the coalition agreement we have point 6, where it's written quite clearly that women should decide about themselves. It seems that the Polish Peasants' Party interprets it as deciding about, I don't know, the color of the bag or the color of, I don't know, the T-shirt, but not necessarily deciding about women's own bodies.
So within the coalition, there are certain rifts, as you said, and Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk was recently saying that it is with regret, but he acknowledges that this parliament is predominantly conservative. It's going to be difficult to get these changes through. We should also mention, what we've already mentioned also during our introduction, that this is a parliament where you have about 30% women, 70% men, which also might be a bit awkward because this is a unique issue related to women's rights, but it is decided upon predominantly by men. But coming back to the composition of the political scene, what would you say is going to happen next? Do you think that the coalition is going to somehow try and convince its junior partners, which is the Polish People's Party, so the most conservative wing of the coalition, so to say, because there is no chance they are going to get any votes from the opposition. All of the opposition is on the conservative side. So this is basically the government having to look in the mirror and to decide which direction are they going to be heading next.
Yes, that's a very good question, and unfortunately, it's the tough one. I would just like to begin with the fact that, the fact itself that we've got 30% of women does not yet mean, or if we had more than 50% of women, this would not necessarily have to mean that they would vote for abortion, because if we take into consideration the fact that within Law and Justice or Polish Peasants' Party or Confederation, we have many women who vote absolutely against liberalization of abortion rights, well, I would say that gender in this case does not actually mean stand regarding the abortion rights for women. However, you are right that the core point here is whether, in particular, Polish Peasants' Party, Polish People's Party, can be convinced about the question of liberalization of abortion rights. And here I see a lot of potential. However, I also see a lot of misunderstanding, because if you take a look at argumentation of MPs from the Polish Peasants' Party, or those MPs who are extremely conservative also within the Civic Coalition, then they claim it's about, rights of the fetus to develop and live. However, in the case of, for example, depenalization of some contribution in abortion, which was the case regarding this last voting, it's a totally different story, because here we speak about the chilling effect on doctors, which relates to the fact that they don't want to take risk and rescue women's lives in case a fetus is not clearly damaged and, irreversibly. So here we have a very different problem. If we speak about those proposals of laws which Polish Peasants' Party opposed actually against, that's a very different story. And here I don't see any rational argumentation that they could actually raise in a convincing way. So in my opinion, that was highly politicized. And taking this into consideration, I think that the fact that the proposal of the left and of the Civic Coalition came back to the parliament means that it will most probably be again voted against. And most probably the Polish Peasants' Party will vote as it did vote actually before. Another thing is that
one quick question, because unfortunately we're running out of time.
Might still be voted by the by the president.
Let me just ask you one quick question, because unfortunately we're running out of time. Do you think a referendum would be a good idea? Some people say let's do a referendum. What is your take on that?
No. It's the worst possible idea, because first of all, imagine the campaign before the referendum regarding abortion in Poland. I mean, it will be a total disinformation, misinformation. I can't even imagine spreading out within the society rational and medical arguments, because most probably the debate will be dominated by emotional arguments, which to me, as a scientist, of course, they are totally irrational and they will skew the public debate. I would not like my country within democracy to make decisions based upon irrational and sometimes really far from medical knowledge arguments. And unfortunately, this may be the case. So what I think should be taken into consideration is the fact that basically abortion, in particular in cases when women's health and life is endangered, it's simply a human right. So we should perceive it from the perspective of international protection of human rights, from medical perspective. And here the politicians should bear responsibility for this decision based upon medical knowledge, on development, on protection of human rights. And this should be actually the argument, not a referendum in which those arguments may simply not even be properly present in the public debate.
So it's a compelling argument for rationality. Compelling argument for rationality in politics, which of course, unfortunately, doesn't really always work in politics today.
That's
and
true.
The debate tends to be very emotional indeed. Renata Mienkowska-Norkiene was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you.
And I'm You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us for more latest news and updates.